Sony has just announced a brand new camera for 2021, and that is the Sony Alpha 1 or the Sony A1. We're talking steak sauce when it comes to camera gear. But we're going to talk about some specs and some of the things that they have said that are going to be a part of this camera. But if we're just meeting for the first time, my name is Omar Eltakrori, where this channel, it's kind of like I position myself like a content creator coach. I love helping people get the best out of their gear, which then myself becomes a gear nerd because I want to be up on all the things. So if you are new, you're checking this out, hit subscribe. I do a lot of tutorials and things like that. Also have another channel that I do make some videos on, and that is Think Media. But nonetheless, I just wanted to talk about this rumor of the day. So, woke up today and actually got a DM on my Instagram, and a friend sent me this announcement. It's the new Sony Alpha 1, super tight name, just because what's cooler than A1? What's higher than A1? But delivering a unprecedented combination of resolution, speed, and video performance with the new 50 megapixel image sensor and shooting up to 8K 30. So we're going to talk about some of the specs in just a second. As far as like quickly my Sony journey, I would say when I first let me turn off these guys. When I first got into Sony, I started with the Sony Alpha 8 or the A2. And that was just photography, and I wanted to level up my photography. And so I got the R2, and then I loved it, and it had great megapixels. And then the A7 came out, and the A7 III, and then I hopped on that. And that was like a fire hybrid camera if you do photo and video. But what it looks like is that Sony really put together kind of like the A7S III with the A7R, type cameras, and kind of find this like maybe the number one hybrid shooter. And if you don't know what a hybrid camera is or being a hybrid shooter, it's somebody who does both video and photo. And I would say at the same level, like you can do a wedding videos, you can do a wedding, you can be the photographer for a wedding. And so I always found that there was a lack in the R cameras when it came to video, and then vice versa with the obviously the A7S cameras. Those had limitations when it came to photography. So all that to say, jump into some of these specs. And by the way, I think Sony's website crashed, the website that they have linked on here, and I was on it, closed my Google Chrome, and then I couldn't get it back up. Anyway, so let's talk about price first, because that's all we care about. Because these pockets ain't empty, cuz. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it's a $6,500 camera, which is pretty expensive considering the type of camera you can get if you go all in on a camera that isn't hybrid. So if I get a cinema camera, you can get a Canon C200, you can get a Sony A7S III, you can get so many cinema cameras for less than, if not, $6,500 is a lot of money. But I think where they're really trying to sell people on is just how beast of a camera this is. Obviously, the number two top features are that it has a 50 megapixel camera, which I think is perfect. If you're thinking like when I was shooting with my A7R2 weddings and stuff, I literally was always shooting like against the light. And because of the information that's in the image, I was always able to pull up the shadows and bring down the highlights, and it retained the information. But with the newest R camera, it's like 70, 60 megapixels. It's like really, really high. I think 50 is a good middle ground when it comes to raw images, if you're really trying to get the best dynamic range. And then as far as video, 8K 30 frames, and it says that the 8K 30 frames won't have full on unlimited recording. On a physical standpoint, I noticed that this camera does not have the flip out screen, so I think that's something to note. I am a fan of this flip out screen. We have a Sony A7S III, and it's nice. I have found myself, though, I've gotten so used to the straight tilt up, which in order to do that with the new articulating screen, you can't just have a straight tilt up. You have to put it off to the side and then tilt up. Obviously, just obvious things. And as far as when the camera is going to come out, it says over here toward the end that pre-orders actually start tomorrow, And so usually with something like this, that like it would be like a month or so. I think we'll start shipping. Let's see. Release. Yeah, just pre-order starting tomorrow, I guess, is the big thing that they're saying, which is crazy to say, like, what, you got one day to think about this? No, I'm just kidding. You obviously can buy it whenever you want. I mean, I guess let me start with this question. Do you think 8K is necessary right now? You know, I was watching the video that they have sampled, and low key, like, I don't even want to try this on a live stream and put this mug on 8K because I ain't trying to make my computer break, cuz. And our phones aren't there yet, but it does shoot 8K. So knowing that it does shoot 8K, we can expect lower frame rates at higher resolutions, or higher frame rates at higher resolutions. So if video is more your thing, it says you can shoot 8K 30 frames per second or 4K up to 120 frames per second. The latter works with a full sensor readout, so no pixel binning and no oversampling. Maybe the A7S3 was limited in that the fact that it is just a 4K camera, where you could totally have you can have the crop mode in a lot of Sony's full frame cameras where you hit, you know, the Super 35 and it crops in. But with the Sony A7S3, you can't do that because it's a full 4K sensor readout. So because it actually has now an 8K sensor, this new A1, in 4K, you might be able to double zoom in and still retain all that information. So that's just something to think about. It says also they're showing off the unrivaled autofocus. I don't even know that they can even make it better than it already is, because I think Sony's autofocus is pretty fire. 5-axis in-body image stabilization. Like, I think what's cool about this release is that I think, other than the non-articulating screen, because I think for video it is helpful to have that for various different reasons. But they're really not, they're not holding back with a camera like this, therefore calling it A1. So grade A, A1, chain the color of Acon, as 2 Chainz says it. I don't know what, that's just random. But what kind of camera are you running? Oh, I'm running the Sony A1. Oh, bet, bro. That's what I'm trying to. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, obviously every time they release something, it has better screen and things like that. But I think this is just something to consider in regards to a new hybrid camera coming out. So I guess the big question is, who is the Sony A1 for? Who is the Sony A1 for? So I would just say let's just wrap this up. And I'll post links to the articles and things like that in the description if you want to go deeper. So for $6,500, obviously you are a professional, you know, at what you're doing. You're actually bringing in some good money in regards to freelancing, contract work, or what have you. I'm a big fan of when stuff like this comes out. Oftentimes the price of the predecessors tend to go down as well. And so I'm actually more excited to see the prices of the other Sony cameras go down, because let me tell you what, your camera is fine. Any camera that came out within, you know, the last 3 years is gonna get you to where you need to go. It always comes down to the user. So when I think about something like this as an upgrade, and someone like me who does a ton of everything. I do a ton of photo work, a ton of video work. I do YouTube videos. I do a lot of things. I do think that it isn't quite necessary. It's such a beast of a camera. And I remember when 2018, Sony sent over the A9 for us to test. And I just remember, you know, I was shooting guys surfing in California just to really test like the powerful burst of the photos and stuff. And I just found out, I was like, dude, this is overkill. I can do this with my A7 III. And maybe I'll miss a millisecond of a shot here and there, but I'll be straight and I'll save $3,000 in the process. Let me put that in lenses. So it's just another thing to think about. You're gonna, you know, all their photos. This is just, you know, a little deceiving, and I like educating people on like deceiving of tech. And one of those deceiving facts is this image that you see right here is not 30 or is not $6,500. This is not a $6,500 image. This is a $6,500 body with a $2,400 lens. So you're talking $9,000 right here. No mic yet. No tripod yet. No other lenses yet. And so I don't mean to sound like a cheap guy, but stimulus checks come in clutch and things like that. And I think you can use that towards something like an A7C, which I think is a great hybrid camera, has a flip out screen. So if we're talking hybrid, we're talking, does great photography and then shoots great video. And, a lot of people are worried about record limits when they buy their cameras, and they want to use this for photos, but it has a record limit. Well, like the Sony A6600, which is a crop censored camera, but has no record limit, has like 20 plus megapixels for their photos, so it looks good. And literally, you can get by, and that camera is about $1,300, $1,200 if you buy, $1,100 if you buy it used. And then the Sony A7 III, which I've been using for over close to 3 years, I think, when it came out in like the springtime of 2018 or 17. And nobody said, man, I wish your photos were more clear, bro. I wish your video was more clear. People were like, dang, this mug is crispy. So all that to say, exciting announcement. I do think it's cool that Sony is, obviously they're creating a camera that is going to now compete with, Canon's drops of last year, like the R5, R6. But I also would respect for Sony to stay in their lane. I love the cameras that have intentionality on them. So like how the R series, like I help a lot of starting photographers, and if you're just wanting to do photography, you get an R, have the megapixels there, but it also shoots great video. But maybe you're not going to be, dabbling into like dynamic range and like flat colored profiles, this and that. If you want something more, like I need a full video camera, I love that the Sony has the S3. Like, $3,500 is actually a good deal for what you're getting with the S3. I've been loving the Sony A7S III. I feel like I'm in a movie every time I film myself and then watch it back. I'm like, I don't deserve to be this drippy crispy. And then if you want hybrid stuff, obviously everything under that is now hybrid. So you got the A7C, the compact, the A7 III if you're like photo and video, and then all the crop censored cameras. But nonetheless, an exciting announcement from Sony, the A1. Let me know in the comments what you think about this announcement. What do you think about the specs? Is this overkill? Is this a crazy price for somebody to pay for a hybrid camera? And I just like to know your thoughts. Let me know if you're excited. Hit the like button and don't hit the dislike button ever. That's just not nice. We don't do that here, okay? Well, nonetheless, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I think it's always good to be abreast on these new camera releases, and more than anything, to watch out for the prices of other things that you've been looking at. Maybe now the A6400 is going to be super cheap, and I think the reality is it has to, as more cameras come out, when a brand releases more, technology and stuff. But let me know in the comments what you think about this release. The Sony A1, $6,500, 50 megapixels, and 8K with up to 30 frames per second. Pretty crazy, but let me know. Thanks for checking this out. This is actually my first live stream. I got the setup going. I got the Stream Deck. I'm about to ruin my setup because all this stuff. But I'm using actually a Canon M6 Mark II. And so, Chris Flores says it's the best of a picture camera and video camera in one. Yes, this will probably be the best hybrid camera up to date. So, and I would assume that there probably won't be any overheating issues, which is cool, But yeah, Thiru says cost, bro. Yeah, I don't know about $6,500. That's a down payment on a house. So if you want to level up your life financially, build wealth, maybe don't put into a camera that can do that a $2,000 camera could do, But yeah, Haseen, sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, but the price is going to be $6,500 And pre-orders begin January 27, 2021. And then I'm sure shipping will be shortly after that, maybe a month after that or so. But yeah, very a niche camera in the sense that it is a hybrid camera, but it's niche to the type of hybrid creator that would want a camera like this. I do love the Sony A7S III, and a big argument is that the megapixels on the A7S III is too low for photography, which I would agree. If you're doing weddings, if you're doing family portraits and things like that, it is kind of low because you want the details there to be able to salvage some of the photo, because when you're shooting in RAW, you can do that. But at 12 megapixels, it's perfect for the social media post for sure. But for the for weddings and for real jobs photography wise, I do think it's a little low. Ryan asked why no flippy screen, dude. It's the funniest thing. Like it's like why not why not flippy screen with the new when you've been putting out cameras with the flip out screen? You got the ZV-1, you got the A7C, and now the A7S III all have fully articulating screens, and for some reason they didn't add it on this one. Yeah, maybe they didn't think that the person's gonna buy this is gonna film themselves. That's probably one of the biggest reasons, I would say. Chris, since you're on here, yeah, what ask me another question. I'll be super down to answer whatever questions you may have in regards to content and things like that. Let me know your thoughts about the Sony A1 $6,500 camera, the steak sauce of hybrid cameras. And yes, there is an external mic jack. I actually haven't seen if there's like a let me just check. Let's check if there's a HDMI. No HDMI. Let me see if there's Sony. Their sites actually back up. Dude. I think they were like, oh no, we put out too much information. Come on, Alpha Universe. Yeah, it looks like dang it sucks because I literally had it up before I started this stream, and then I accidentally closed out the Chrome, and then I tried to reopen it, and it didn't work. Let's see what else they're saying. Yeah. Look at that. Bad links. So as far as more in-depth information, I'll put this link in the description right after this stream, just to make sure you can get all the access to all that information. Let's check B. If let's say a B and H got something. Boom. Hey, here's the secret, guys. Go onto a site that actually... So this is just the body, $6,500, and we got here's some of the key features. Obviously, these are all great. The main features are 50 megapixels for photography, and then we got 8K, 30 frames, 4K, 120 with 10-bit, which is great. That makes it a fire hybrid camera, like we mentioned. But let's see. HDMI. I mean, 100% has a clean HDMI. So you're asking if there's a clean HDMI. Yes, Sony's been doing clean HDMI for like 5 years on all their cameras. Yeah, full size HDMI, which is nice. So I would assume that you can send over, probably if you have like an Atomos recorder, you can shoot in ProRes RAW. And they got a 3.5 millimeter headphone and external mic jack. I don't expect them to have the XLR thing, but I have been using this device right here. This is the XLR K3M. If you don't know what this is, maybe it's a little expensive because you can buy a Zoom recorder or something. But this $600 item on the Sony A7S III or the A7C literally gives your camera 2 XLR inputs without having to plug anything into your camera. So it says that this camera will also have this ability to read this. There's only I think the A7R4 can read this, but the A7 III doesn't have it, or any of the crop cameras. You can't use this accessory, but they're saying the A1 can, obviously. That's funny how the built-in Wi-Fi enables remote camera. Okay, I hope you did that in 2021. Put some Wi-Fi up in that camera, cuz. Xperia and going live. Not sure about Xperia. What camera do I use for photo? I just opened a studio for photo. The camera I've been using for photography as of late has been the Sony A7 III, and I love that camera. This is the Sony A7 III, and I love it because of, and one thing I've learned about the A7 III versus the A7C, which is just a compact version of this, is for photography, dude, you want all the custom buttons. And that's what the A7 III lacks. It, like, yes, it has an articulating screen, but like I found that after using this camera for like 3 years, it became such like second nature to know where my custom, what my custom buttons were and where things were. But because they wanted to shrink the size of the camera, the A7C is very small in stature. And so you don't have those abilities. And so it's almost like it's a camera, if you really know your settings, the A7C, because you need to know how to maximize the ability to use the camera without any extra buttons. So I would recommend a camera like the A7 III for photography, or go older on an A7R series camera, because photography hasn't changed. Like if you're just taking photos, I would argue that if you're doing like photo studio work, that you might want the A7R III or an A7R II. I'm not a fan of the A7R4 because of how high the megapixels are, but the A7R2 is like 40 megapixels and the A7R3 is like 40 megapixels. But those cameras, I'm always so blown away at the ability to shoot against light. I have a video on my channel called like a family photo shoot outdoors, and probably the number one question I get on that video is, what were you lighting that family with? And it was a 100% natural light photo session, and the sun was out, but it didn't matter where I positioned the people, because the dynamic range in the R series cameras is kind of unreal. And so all that to say, it makes it, I would say, arguably one of the greatest cameras, the A7R. Someone asked, Elisha Park, why would you need video to film video in 8K or even in 4K? Okay, I guess this is a fire question. And which mic I'm using now, that's an easier question to answer. I'm using the Shure MV7. This came out about October 2020. And I love this USB mic, but also has XLR input, also has a headphone jack if you want to go monitor your audio. And I actually got like a Samsung a Shure SM7B pop filter and put it on this. So it actually looks like an SM7B, but for half the price. You know what I'm saying? We out here, making deals. But why would you want 8K? I would say you would want 8K probably if you are doing work where it needs to be like seen on screens and things like that. So maybe there's not that many like 8K TVs and that's not normalized. But I remember when I was doing work for Finley Honda in Las Vegas, I was doing multiple cars and things like that, and they were running this footage on their screens in their lobby. And now in my brain as a creator, I was like, okay, so the thing I'm creating is going to help sell cars, and so it needs to look as crispy as possible. So one reason why you would want 4K or 8K is just to have maximum resolution, is always good for just detail. But a cool reason to have 8K is just for forgiveness. So one thing I actually do when I shoot podcasts for people is shoot in 4K, and then I edit a 1080 project, and then I can now zoom into, and I made a video on this too, you can now zoom into two different people on a podcast, and then it retains the resolution if I export in 1080, because now because 4K is for 1080s. So right now you're seeing a 1080 image because you can't stream in 4K, but there's four 1080s in a 4K. So with 8K, now we're looking at four 4Ks in one image, which means you can shoot a clip in 8K and then zoom in and still have all that information there for 4K. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, and to answer, that's why I would say you would want it. You know, if you want some forgiveness, or if you're really wanting to do like high end work that's going to show up on various televisions and things like that. I don't know. You know, if you make a commercial today, obviously Red cameras have been able to do Red 8K and stuff like that for quite some time. But if you're shooting commercials, like, and people have 8K televisions, and you're in that range, then maybe you want to consider that. But there's also, like, that's what I'm saying. If you're doing commercials, then wouldn't you get a cinema camera that like does that stuff versus a camera like this? I kind of would. I would get a camera that focuses on video if I'm doing commercials. What do you recommend for somebody getting into video? In regards to getting into video, something I recommend is to learn the basics of video. One thing I learned when it comes to video versus photography is that video is quite easier in the sense that there's less settings that you should actually manipulate. So when it comes to just basic video, you're shooting a frame rate, which means your shutter speed should be a certain shutter speed, and that shouldn't be changed, which means if you want a blurry background or if you want any depth in any shot, your aperture should be pretty low. And then the only thing that I'm adjusting is really my ISO. It actually gets more simpler when you get nicer video cameras, because you're almost not even changing the ISO. You're actually just gonna maybe use a ND filter or something like that to adjust your exposure, because a lot of cinema cameras have what is called native ISOs. So, like the Sony A7S3 has like two native ISOs. It's 640, and then it's like 12,800. So I'm shooting my videos in 640, even though I could, bump up light, bring it down, or, manipulate a couple stuff. But like, I don't have to mess with any settings. Now I just need to change the environment to match the camera settings. But I would learn the basics of video, and then obviously just get started. Start shooting stuff. Start editing video. If I've learned anything is creating videos is just a skill you need to work on, regardless of the kind of video you're creating. Whether you're filming yourself on your phone or you're shooting a job on a camera, you just need to start doing it so you can. It's kind of like, you need to mess up to learn. Like, I've learned so much because I've come to, stopping points at my process, therefore causing me to pull up, YouTube and search things. And then I find a new thing. Like I know that's the Sony A7S3 has two native ISOs because I'm studying up on the things that I want to level up in. And so I would encourage you with that. Red camera or Sony A1. I think the tough thing about a question like that is it doesn't look like the Sony A1 is a cinema camera. So where the Red is a cinema camera, and the Red, you're not going to take photos. Obviously, you can do like still shots, but you're not going to shoot a wedding photography with a Red. And so, yeah, I mean, in my mind, I have a friend, my friend Bradley Dunn, who's been a Red shooter for like 2 or 3 years, and I'm not impressed with the workflow that comes with using Red cameras. It's just a lot. It's raw. It's its own file format, which needs its own software to be read, which needs to be, proxied to be able to be worked with, and is cool because it shoots in RAW. Essentially what Reds do is they shoot photos in the same frames, but it's RAW. So it's like you're taking 24 images per second that is RAW. So on a Red camera, you don't need to adjust your settings really as far as exposure and temperature and stuff like that. You can adjust all those things in post, which is nice. But I don't know. I would assume that the A7 III price would drop now because this is essentially an A7. When you thought the A7 III was the mom or the dad, we just found out this is the A7 III is the adopted child of the Sony Alpha 1, which that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the Sony Alpha 1, a new camera offering from Sony, a $6,500 hybrid camera, which is pretty gnarly in my opinion, but as far as price goes, but cool specs nonetheless. I mean, I think it's just exciting. Who doesn't like new cameras? But nonetheless, let's wrap this up. Again, check out the description right after the stream. If you're watching this after the stream, like the if you haven't subscribed, I do videos, tutorial based videos, and also educational videos when it comes to creating content. So subscribe if you'd like. Let's see if this button works. I've just hooked up my OBS. So hey, hit that subscribe button. You know what I'm saying? And you can follow me on Instagram. Hey, your boy out here on a live stream. Thanks for joining me on my first live. If you are part of this 55 viewers right now, I love you, and this is cool. I'm about this life. I'm live streaming to the interwebs. I'm reaching the world with my creativity. I don't know. I'm being dumb. So I appreciate you guys for being in this live stream, even if you're watching on the replay. Let me know what you think about the A7 or the A1, the Sony A1, all these AAA. But let me know about the Sony steak sauce. We want to know.